A dream about my dead father changed everything. Not all pain is punishment. Sometimes it's a call to remember. There are wounds that outlive the people who caused them, grief that echoes longer than the love we never got to express, and words left unspoken that weigh heavier than tombstones. For 15 years, I carried the weight of everything my father and I never said to each other. Every conversation that ended in silence, every chance for connection that slipped away like sand through desperate fingers. 3 months after his funeral, when I had convinced myself that death was the final punctuation mark on our broken relationship, something happened that shattered everything I thought I knew about endings. It was just a dream, or so I told myself. But this dream didn't fade with morning light. Instead, it grew stronger, more vivid, more real than the waking world around me. In this dream, my father appeared not as the angry, distant man I remembered, but as someone I had never met before, someone peaceful, radiant, with eyes full of an understanding that seemed to stretch across lifetimes. And he said something to me that would change not only how I saw him, but how I understood the invisible threads that connect us all across time, death, and the space between what we think we know and what is actually true. Let me tell you what really happened. My father died on a Tuesday in March, and we hadn't spoken in 3 years. The last conversation we had was a fight about money, about responsibility, about all the ways I had disappointed him and all the ways he had failed me. He hung up on me, and in the stubborn pride that I inherited from him, I decided I would never call back. I told myself I was protecting my peace, setting boundaries, refusing to accept his toxic patterns. What I was really doing was building a wall so high that love couldn't climb over it, even when it was running out of time. When the call came from my sister that he had collapsed at work, that the doctors were doing everything they could, that I should come quickly, I felt something break inside me that I didn't even know was still whole. I drove 8 hours through the night, rehearsing apologies and explanations, preparing for the conversation that would finally heal everything between us. But I was too late. He had slipped into unconsciousness an hour before I arrived, and he never woke up. I sat beside his hospital bed for 3 days, holding his hand and whispering all the words I should have said years earlier, but they fell into silence like stones down a well. The funeral was everything he would have hated. Too formal, too religious, full of people saying nice things they never said while he was alive. I gave a eulogy about the man I wished he had been, the father I wanted to remember, but inside I felt hollow, cheated by death and time and my own stubborn heart. For months afterward, I tried to make peace with the permanent incompleteness of our relationship. I went to therapy, read books about grief, told myself that some stories don't get happy endings, and that was just the way life worked. The Buddha taught about impermanence, about accepting what cannot be changed, and I thought I was being spiritual by letting go. But what I was really doing was giving up, resigning myself to carrying this wound forever. Then came the dream. I was standing in what looked like the backyard of the house where I grew up, but everything was bathed in this golden light that seemed to come from everywhere at once. The air itself felt alive, humming with a presence I couldn't name but recognized in my bones. And there he was, sitting on the old wooden bench where he used to read the newspaper every morning, but he looked different. Younger, somehow, but also ageless. The hard lines around his eyes had softened. The tension he always carried in his shoulders was gone. And when he looked at me, I saw something I had never seen before in all my 37 years: complete, unconditional acceptance. "I've been waiting for you," he said, his voice carrying a warmth I didn't remember from life. "Dad?" I whispered, afraid that speaking too loudly would break whatever magic was allowing this moment to exist. "I know you've been angry," he said. "I know you think I failed you. And in many ways, I did." He patted the bench beside him, the same gesture he used to make when I was small and needed comfort after a nightmare. "But I need you to understand something important. The anger, the disappointment, the love we couldn't express, none of it was wasted. It was all part of a much bigger story than either of us could see." As I sat beside him, the scene around us began to shift and change, like pages turning in a cosmic book. I saw flashes of other times, other lives, ancient scenes where we had been different people, playing different roles, but always connected, always working through the same patterns of love and loss, pride and forgiveness. "You see," he said, and somehow I knew he was about to share something that would change everything. "We've been doing this dance for lifetimes. Sometimes I'm the father, sometimes you are. Sometimes we hurt each other, sometimes we heal each other. But we keep choosing to find each other because the soul recognizes what the mind forgets, that love is the only thing that survives death, and every conflict is just love trying to remember itself." I saw us as brothers in medieval times, dying in each other's arms on a battlefield, whispering forgiveness with our last breaths. I saw us as strangers who helped each other during a famine, sharing our last piece of bread without knowing why we trusted each other so completely. I saw us as teacher and student, as friends, as enemies who became allies, playing every variation of relationship across centuries of time. "The anger you feel," he continued, "it's not really about this lifetime. It's about all the times we've missed each other, all the chances we've had to get it right and didn't. But that's the beauty of it. We keep getting chances. And this anger you're carrying, it's not punishment, it's fuel. It's the soul's way of saying, we're not finished yet." The golden light began to intensify, and I could feel the dream starting to slip away. "But we are finished," I said desperately. "You're gone. We ran out of time." He smiled then, the first real smile I could ever remember seeing on his face. "Time is an illusion, son. Love is not. The forgiveness you're looking for isn't something I can give you from here. It's something you have to give yourself. And when you do, you'll understand that we were never really fighting each other. We were fighting for each other, trying to break through all the walls that keep love hidden." As the dream faded, he reached over and touched my chest, right over my heart. "The peace you're seeking has always been here. I'm not gone. I'm just playing a different part now. And my job now is to love you from a place where anger can't reach, where disappointment can't live, where only the truth remains." I woke up with tears streaming down my face, and the absolute certainty that what I had experienced was more than just my mind processing grief. And for the first time since his death, I felt something shift inside me. Not closure, exactly, but opening. Like a door I didn't even know was locked had finally swung wide. In Tibetan Buddhism, there's a concept called the bardo, the intermediate state between death and rebirth, where consciousness exists in a liminal space that's neither fully gone nor fully returned. But there's also a bardo between souls who have loved each other across multiple lifetimes, a sacred space where healing can happen even after the physical relationship has ended. The Buddha taught in the Dhammapada, hatred does not cease by hatred, but only by love. This is the eternal rule. But what I learned from my father's dream was that this principle extends far beyond one lifetime, far beyond the boundaries of what we think of as possible. The love between souls is like a river that flows through many landscapes. Sometimes it's blocked by rocks of resentment, sometimes it runs underground through aquifers of grief, but it never truly stops flowing. Western psychology tells us that dreams about deceased loved ones are just our minds processing loss, creating comfort through familiar images and memories. But ancient wisdom traditions understand something deeper, that consciousness is not confined to physical form, and that the connections we make in love create bridges that span lifetimes. When we love someone deeply, even imperfectly, even through conflict, we become entangled with them in ways that transcend death. The vision of our other lifetimes together wasn't just fantasy or wish fulfillment. It was recognition, the soul remembering what the personality had forgotten. We choose our relationships, not just in this life, but across many lives, because each interaction gives us the opportunity to learn something essential about love, forgiveness, and the true nature of connection. My father and I had been playing out an ancient pattern, the father who doesn't know how to express love except through control, and the child who rebels against that control but still desperately wants the love underneath it. We had both been prisoners of this pattern, lifetime after lifetime, until finally one of us, in this case him, from beyond death, found the key to break free. The key was understanding that every conflict between souls who love each other is really a conversation about love itself. We fight not because we don't care, but because we care so much. We wound each other not from malice, but from our clumsy attempts to break through the barriers that separate us. And when we can see the love hidden beneath the pain, we can finally begin to heal not just this lifetime's wounds, but lifetimes of accumulated sorrow. The Buddha also taught about interdependence, the truth that all beings are connected in an invisible web of relationships that extends through space and time. Nothing exists independently. Everything arises through connection to everything else. This means that healing our relationship with one person, even after they've died, sends ripples of healing through the entire web of existence. Have you ever felt a love so familiar it seemed to come from before this lifetime? Do you believe that the souls we're drawn to, even in difficult relationships, might be old companions who've agreed to help each other learn and grow across many lives? 6 months after that dream, I started having conversations with my father. Not in dreams this time, but in meditation, in quiet moments, in the space between my thoughts where love lives without conditions. I began to understand that forgiveness isn't something we give or receive like a gift. It's something we discover when we finally see clearly enough to recognize love beneath all its disguises. The anger I carried for so long transformed into compassion, not just for him, but for both of us, for all the ways we had tried and failed and tried again to love each other across the barriers of personality and pain. I realized that our difficult relationship hadn't been a failure. It had been a sacred assignment, a chance for two souls to help each other remember who they really were beneath all the human drama. Now, when I think of my father, I don't see the flawed, distant man who struggled to express love. I see the eternal soul who chose to be my father in this lifetime, who took on the difficult role of teaching me about forgiveness through the gift of needing to forgive him. And I see myself not as the wounded child who never got the father he wanted, but as the soul who chose this exact experience because it would crack my heart open wide enough for unconditional love to finally pour in. If this story awakened something in your heart, leave a word in the comments, even just "Koch peace." Sometimes the healing we share with one soul creates space for healing in countless others. And if you have someone you love who has passed, someone you wish you could have one more conversation with, remember, love doesn't die. It just changes form. The conversation you're longing for might be waiting for you in the quiet space of your own heart, where all souls meet beyond the boundaries of time and form. Subscribe if you'd like to explore more stories of healing across lifetimes and dimensions. Share this if you know someone who needs to remember that love is stronger than death, and forgiveness is always possible, even when it seems too late. Let's build a space of compassion and truth together. Death ends a life, not a relationship. And love finds a way.